up there.
Yeah, I'm pretty short.
All right.
Hello, I'm a little shorter. I never missed my husband in my bed. Never missed his bony body. I worried about him. How's this scrawny white boy going to survive prison? But I never missed him in that visceral way. Let me talk a little bit about beds. When I was little, we used to stay sometimes with my grandmother. Grandmother was a full-figured woman, and the best feeling in the world was to crawl into bed with Grandma. She wore silk nightgowns and smelled like talcum powder, and cuddling up with her were little moments of heaven. And in spite of that, I carry the notion that my belly makes me unlovable. And a couple years after my husband went to prison, I got a chance to test out that hypothesis. It was a few years down the road, and I had decided I could start living my life and stop worrying about him. So I put a profile on OkCupid. A lot of people hate online dating because it's awful. But what's nice about it is with so many possibilities, it's like Westworld. You learn who you really are. You learn what are your deal breakers and what are not your deal breakers. And just a few minutes after I put up my profile, I got a message. Baba Louie wants to meet you. And I was a little bit scared because in America, being sexual while fat is a revolutionary act. And sometimes I don't have the energy for the revolution. But I decided to meet Baba Louie, and he was a big guy, so we can all exhale. And we had a fun lunch, and he was this exuberant spirit. And he called me a couple days later, and for the second date, he'd reserved a room in a hotel, which was not a deal breaker for me. My counselor was, that's a little presumptuous, but, you know, he was so excited because Priceline, like he'd gotten a room at the Ramada for $30. It's not that I don't have deal breakers. I mean, once I went screaming out of the California Pizza Kitchen because the guy who was buying me dinner was an undecided voter. But I went to the hotel, and what you think may have happened is actually not what happened, because Baba Louie got a song stuck in his head, tune yards, if you guys, and so he couldn't really focus. So we spent the night just kind of listening to tune yards and Googling stuff, which was not a deal breaker for me. I have deal breakers. A deal breaker for me was one guy I met, and 10 minutes after meeting him, he told me he had 3 piercings in his penis that he had done himself. So I was like, well, I'm just going to look at it, and then I'm going to ghost him. So Baba Louie and I dated for a while, and he was pretty cool. I really loved him, but then everything changed. So he was a social worker, and when Corbett came into office, he closed the agency where Baba Louie worked. So Baba Louie was now over 50 and unemployed. And then his back went out, so he couldn't really walk, and he couldn't look for a job. And he just stopped calling me, and he stopped. No more Priceline, and I would call him, and he just ghosted me, and I went out with other guys, but a couple of years later, Tune Yards was on the radio. I'm like, this is a sign. So I wrote to him, and he called me, and he told me, I mean, his health had deteriorated worse and worse, and he was homeless, and then he eventually was living with his ex-wife, but I said, yeah, Bob, I'm so glad you called because I thought we loved each other, and I didn't hear from you. I thought I made it up inside my head. And he said, no, you didn't. I did love you, and I do love you. And I want to see you. And I was like, yes. And then I didn't hear from him again. And a couple weeks later, I Googled him, and I found his obituary. So sometimes when someone's ghosting you, it's because they're a ghost. But my point is, with all this dating, I found out what I liked, and I like bellies. And so if anybody has ever gone through a trauma like their husband going to jail, I know how you can work it out. I know how you can process it. Just fuck a bunch of fat guys. There is no downside. Because lying in bed with my arm thrown across some big belly or another, these are my moments of heaven.